Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast in Chicago still. And we are looking at Monday here, the day after Christmas. Hope you all had a great Sunday watching those 5 games. Some pretty fun action. We've got 7 games on the slate tonight, so we are going to be taking a look at a couple game videos and our player props as always, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. In this one, we're talking about a pretty fun matchup in the Eastern Conference there. Cleveland playing host to the surging Brooklyn Nets. Take a look at that one. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where we have our great content for you guys all season long, and our odds finder tool that Nate and I are using every day to make sure you're shopping the best lines available across those U.S. sports books, getting you guys the best juice out there. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into the 7-game slate and then talk Cavs Nets.
Yeah, it starts off with Clippers at the Pistons, and while the Clippers are well rested, always beware, it's a front end of a back-to-back for the Clips, so they're -6 at Detroit, but you never know who's going to play. Nets are +2 at the Cavs. That's a game we're going to break down here. Definitely an intriguing Eastern Conference matchup. Wolves +3 at the Heat, who are once again playing games with the injury report and toying with lines and whatever else the gambling world, DFS world, wants to know. The Rockets are +8 at the Bulls, who will be without Alex Caruso there, kind of a key injury. The Pacers, another game we'll break down, are up to +6.5 at Pelicans. Total's up to 236. Jazz, well-rested, -4.5 at the Spurs. And then the Hornets, +6 at the Blazers, highest total of the night, at 238. We started talking about this Cavs-Nets game on the Christmas slate, which, by the way, just went over at a ridiculous rate. Apparently no defense played on the holidays, gift wrapping layups. And we were thinking, Cavs are tough to beat when they're at home and they're full strength. So that's how we were approaching this game. Cavs tough to beat at home. So that's how we were approaching this game. But, I think the Nets are tough to beat anywhere right now. I think they're finally starting to reach their potential. We talked about this in the Toronto matchup a couple games ago for them. We're all over Nets winning, all over Kyrie putting up points. In this matchup, I think it might be a little bit more about Kevin Durant, but look, it's both of them. It's a pick your poison situation where in their last 4 road games, KD averaging 34, Kyrie averaging about 29. Both guys with an offensive rating over 120. Nets with a 122 offensive rating. And they're not only winning, they're covering lately 4 of their last 5 games, which is rare for Brooklyn. But it's not just those 2 guys playing iso ball. It's a really well-rounded team distribution here. High assist to field goal ratio, scoring 124 in their last 8. Going over in 6 of the last 8, and the shot diet lately has led to 53% from 3. That's the best in the league. But in this particular matchup for Cleveland, it's about can you move the ball, I think. Can you get a good assist-to-field goal ratio, and can you beat them in the mid-range? And I think the Nets are perfectly positioned to do that with those 2 guys. They don't necessarily have to score in the same ways that a lot of NBA teams try to score, which is either at the rim or from the three-point line, and Cleveland kind of built to defend those things. Whereas the Nets, their defense has been a bit more versatile under Jacques Vaughn. But they're certainly limiting free throws and limiting 2-point shooting on the road. And the Cavs have a very low percentage of points off threes. It's similar to Toronto. They're 31% of the points on threes. Toronto's even lower at 28%. That's why Brooklyn's owned Toronto lately, despite their athleticism, their ability to fly over the floor. And Cleveland, with Mobley back and Jarrett Allen out there, has that similar ability. But I think that those 2 guys are just scheme busters. And so I lean Nets, whether it's a high-scoring or low-scoring game. But, the wild card here is how Donnie Mitchell's going to play, and that's pretty much what you think in terms of the over, because he has some huge fluctuations lately. Just awful against Dallas and Toronto, and then just lights out against the Bucks in another recent home game. So, I think the total is too much of a wild card to bet on with Cleveland at home. But I do like the Nets, especially if you're going to get a little juice on that money line.
Yeah, it's an even matchup. I mean, the first thing we talked about when we were talking about this game, like you said, was man, Cleveland's nasty at home, right? And you have to look at how they're nasty at home. Definitely Donnie Mitchell doing his thing a bit more there as of late helps big time. You also look at the way that they've been nasty at home, as I keep saying, and it's definitely, like you said, exactly right. It's just defending exactly where their strength is, which is down low. So if you are a team, and they're running you off the 3-point line as well, as we know as well, sort of limiting the opponent 3-point attempts, which is huge. I think too often we kind of look at how is the other team shooting from deep against a certain team, and it's like, is that really the most accurate defense when there's so much variability there with the 3-point shot and volatility, as we always say, and so it's really just about limiting the attempts, and that's where they run you off the line, and they have the ability to do that, obviously because of the fact that they have that presence down low. But then you look at exactly where Brooklyn is scoring from, and not to be, no confusion there. They've got Kyrie and KD, two of the best mid-range guys in the game, and that's going to be what it is. Probably two of the best five, if we're being honest, if not three. So if that's going to be where they're going to continue to get the largest percentage of their points from, then that's exactly how you need to beat Cleveland in this instance, in my opinion. Then you look at the defensive end for Brooklyn, as you were talking about as well, and yeah, the defense on the road has been a little bit less than, right? But it's really more about what are your two guys doing, where are they scoring from, and is that dictating the pace and the flow of the game? And that's why their half-court offense compared to transition is just as good. It's top 5 in the league in terms of Brooklyn, and that's what you need to be able to do to score against Cleveland. That's going to get back, limit fast break points, limit transition points, but like that's fine. Like that's not really going to be the MO here for Brooklyn tonight. I do think it's sort of an opportunity to get Ben Simmons going as well. If you look at sort of the games that he's played well in, and gotten, and we'll talk about this in player props, but gotten the props that and rebounds and assists that he needs to get. It's definitely in these choppier games. It's in games such as this one where they are going to be playing at a bit of a slower pace, and I think you can see Ben sort of get really sort of own the boards as much as he can. Obviously not own them against this team, but that's essentially what has been helping them score on offense outside of these made shots is their offensive rebounding as well. Insert Ben Simmons in that sense. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more limited, so I'm not loving the idea of points. I think Brooklyn's down to play at that style of play that Cleveland is. 221, pretty low for a Brooklyn game, but maybe bright on for a Cleveland at-home game. And I do think that Brooklyn's shown the ability to play that level of pace. They've got, in their last 10 games I was just looking at, they've got like the same amount of games playing at a pace of like over 99 and under 99. So really, they're like I said, they're down to do to clown however you guys really want to. So I just think that this is an opportunity for them to continue to sort of show their dominance in the East. They've been just absolutely destroying the Eastern Conference during this win streak, winning 7 of their last 8 against the Eastern Conference as well. Their last loss came to the Seas back on December 4th, when I think we were all still a little bit more happy with what the Seas were showing there. But this is another game for them to get up for, and I think it's an opportunity to get them at a really small spread there as a dog.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing we're seeing with the Sixers, right? Just like thrown aside as a super disappointing team after like 8 games, 10 games, whatever. And now they're just handling business. And the Sixers on Christmas available at -2 against a Knicks team that's, an upstart. I mean, the Cavs are a little more legit than your Knicks, I will say. But look, they're just starting to round into form as actual championship contenders because it's a long season, and that's what we expect the Nets to be. And you mentioned Ben Simmons and his ability to distribute. I think that's emblematic of how the Nets are winning right now, is that it's KD and Kyrie finishing a lot of possessions, but a lot of guys are touching it. And it's really, the ball is zipping around. And that's how you beat a good defense like Cleveland. And they've scored a lot on some pretty good defenses lately, including beating Toronto twice. And Toronto, by the way, just beat Cleveland at home, holding Garland and Mitchell to some really, really poor numbers, while their big guys, OG, Scotty, and Siakam, all went for 25 plus. So, I mean, the big stars on the other team are capable of getting theirs against Cleveland. I don't really worry about the Nets offense as much down the stretches. I really would worry about the Cavs offense if Donnie Mitchell is not cooking. And for what it's worth, he has really good numbers against Brooklyn his last 4 when he was with the Jazz. But I don't trust him as much in kind of the solo spot, or I don't trust Garland as much as his 1B option versus Kyrie and KD, who I think are finally able to fly under the radar a little bit. They're no longer in the headlines for every negative thing, and they're starting to just play ball and be the dynamic duo that we imagined before they were suddenly joined by James Harden, and this whole thing kind of unraveled. But the two of them together, they love playing with each other, and they're just absolute scheme breakers, and that's what you need to do against a good defense.
No, fully concur, and that's how they've been winning as well. So,
and then the Pacers have suddenly dropped to +3.5 with news that Zion is doubtful to return after 4 days off with conditioning issues. I mean, I don't know how you don't have your conditioning ready after 4 days. That's just sketchy. The game I like as well here, Jazz -4.5 at the Spurs. Utah hasn't played also in 4 days. They're very good on a rest advantage, very bad on the road, but the Spurs are back to their tanking bullshit. So I think Utah should be able to handle that one. And then the Hornets +6 at the Blazers with the highest total of the night at 238. So huge line movement with this early news on Zion. The total had been bet up from 229 to 236. Hopefully, if you guys were watching that, that's where you grabbed the under. And now it's at 234, probably going to keep dropping. And I think the spread might keep dropping as well for the Pels, in which case I'm on it. I'm on the home team. They've played plenty of games without Zion. And the Pacers are, while they've had a nice run here, beating 2 Eastern Conference juggernauts, if you will, in Boston and Miami, I don't think that they're ready yet to go into NOLA to beat one of these one of its teams meshing at the top of the Western Conference, flavor of the week, best team in the West. That needs to get right after their little slide here. And the biggest reason is CJ McCollum, who I was going to lead player props with, even if Zion was playing, because he's cooking again. He came into the season a little bit out of shape, was not cooking early when these teams met, and Indy actually pulled out the win. But right now, he should be a problem for this Pacers defense that struggles to guard the perimeter. And they've done much better, though, limiting points in the paint, limiting free throw attempts lately. Still 29th on the season, but in their last 3, giving up the third fewest free throw attempts per game. So a Pelicans team that I did lean towards under for sure at 236, because this is a Pelicans team that guards the three-point line extremely well. And that's basically why Indy's been playing so well recently. They're number 1 in three-pointers made and 3rd in percentage in their last 10 games, hitting 21 on Miami, which Miami is a really good team defending the three-point line too. I see that more as an outlier than as Indy doing something particularly well. I mean, Halliburton 8 for 10 or 10 for 16 from 3 in that game. Halliburton just unconscious right now, including against the Celtics, but that has to come down a little bit. I mean, just his efficiency from deep is not going to be there. You look at the Pacers on the road, 11-6 to the under this season, games averaging about 230, which is, pretty impressive in terms of total, but not going to get you to 235 where we're at right now. And the Pels, I mean, they haven't hit 230 since in 5 games now. You're certainly going to expect less pace, fewer free throw attempts, and less paid points without Zion if he's not out there. And for whatever reason, Pels have a slightly better defensive rating when Zion is playing. I don't really buy into that. I think their defense will be just fine without him here. And particularly against Indy, that's a perimeter-heavy team that likes to shoot a ton of threes. And that's exactly what Willie Green's squad can do, is run you off the line and get you into situations, into shots you don't want to take. So I like the under. I like the home team here, though, depending where you get this line, because it's going to fluctuate a lot now that we know Zion might not play.
Yeah, if Zion, look, this is just a fun game to talk about no matter what. It kind of got a little bit more fun as it's been fluctuating like crazy. This thing opened at 229.5. I hit it already at that over because I was just like, come on, man. But 236.5 all the way up to that the next day. I wake up this morning and that's what it's at. And then literally as you're reading the lines to go over this game, we're like, wait a second, why did it just go from 6.5 to 4.5 in a matter of seconds for the Pacers here? And it's still dropping a bit. It's at 3 right now as we're talking, plus 3 for New Orleans. 234.5. Probably where it should have started, to be honest with you, is like 232, 233 is probably around where this total should have started. Last time they played, I believe that they reached 241, and that was a pretty much everybody playing scenario, including Brandon Ingram and Zion for the Pellies, everybody in there for Indy, including Miles Turner. But I believe in this Indiana style of play over the last, let's say 5 to 10 games, and more so on defense than offense. And that's why I believe that they can hang in these games the way that they have been. They haven't lost a game by more than 7 points in like 2 or 3 weeks, right? In their last roughly 7 games, they've been at least covering that amount in that time frame. They've gone 6-4 against the spread. And like you said, I'm a little bit weary of their success on offense because of the fact they've been so reliant on threes. That's going to be how they continue to play, but they've just been absolutely unconscious from deep as of late, which is how they beat those Celtics as well, who aren't really guarding the 3-point line. So there's a bit of a give and take there. But I think you love points because of the way that you initially loved points because of the way that the Pellies score and the way that the holes that Indy has on defense when you're giving up free throw attempts. I know they've sort of gotten better at that in the last 3 games that they've played, but over the course of the last 10, they're still like pretty much dead last in allowing free throw attempts to the other team. They've just been playing a few teams. I think C's aren't getting to the line that much. The Heat, they kind of are, but they weren't in that game, only getting 108 points and nobody driving for them. And like you said, I hate talking about the Heat this year because I don't even know who's playing, so it's not like we're talking about the same team ever. But we know what Indy's bringing, and I think that they've shown over the last 10 that they're going to be a little bit better in the paint. They're going in terms of on defense. They're going to continue to put up those threes, and if how well they do on offense is obviously super predicated on making 3-pointers. But how well they're playing on defense, I think, about middle of the pack is what you can expect from a Rick Carlisle team moving forward. The rebounding has gotten a bit better. They are dead last on the season in defensive rebounding percentage, but also something in the smaller sample size as of late, limiting opponents' second chance points, limiting offensive rebounds from the other team as well, back into the top 15. So I don't know that their offense is sustainable game after game the way that it is, and the way that the Pellies, they've actually been a little bit worse the last 3 games or so in guarding the 3-point line, but overall on the season, we know that how good they are. They're third best in limiting their opponents' 3-pointers made and percentages in the top 5. So they have a legit, defense against the 3. It's been a little bit lackluster of late. I think there's something to the idea that they're a little bit worse on defense without Zion because he has been much better this season individually. But I don't know that, it is a 5-point difference in terms of their defensive rating, 5 points per 100%. Per 100 possessions better with Zion on the floor. I'm not making that as just total like causation or a correlation. I'm just saying that there's something there that at least shows that Zion's been bringing it a lot more on the defensive side of the ball, in allowing them to get those defensive rebounds. I would say offensive rebounds, to be honest. On defense, he's still not really defensively rebounding. So that's been the opportunity as well for a guy like Miles Turner. But I think between Turner and Valanciunas just beating the crap out of each other, which we'll continue to see, and as long as unless Miles Turner just stays out on the 3-point line, which he's fine being guarded by Joe Val out there. Also a pretty good individual defensive rating this season. So I do, you got to see what's going on with this total. Let's just be very clear. Like 234.5 right now. I'm still kind of leaning a bit to the under here, at closer to 230 is what I see this game without Zion in. I think the pace might go down a bit as well without Zion. We know that goes up. So I think everything just becomes a little bit more organized, and it's something that the Pacers want. They're not scoring fast break points either. They are limiting them. So I think there's an opportunity to sort of take the overcorrection all the way up to like 236 and go under on that total. And I still kind of like the Pacers to be able to hang around this game. It's at +3 right now. I probably wouldn't take the Pacers any lower than that because, like you said, and we'll talk about CJ McCollum and player props, but CJ is on one right now, and he's definitely enough to carry this offense with a pretty good defense still in there with Herb Jones and Trey Murphy III healthy right now. Nate, let's just go ahead and jump right into our first NBA player prop for tonight.
Yeah, the wacky stuff. It's another COVID Christmas, basically. And there's also a lot of non-COVID coronaviruses going along. That's what you hear in my voice, for what it's worth. And the Pelicans, Zion seems to have been sick, so he's doubtful to return to play due to conditioning. And then his illness seems to have spread around the locker room a little bit. You got to stay on top of it to know who's going to play. But we think CJ McCollum's going to be out there with, a bit of a skeleton crew now. And as it stands, 20.5 points for CJ is very low. It's probably going to adjust with Zion being out. But in any case, in his last 5, he's averaging 29 points, 8 over assists on a 30% usage rate. If you take out a poor shooting night against OKC, 31.5 points per game in his previous 4, and his last 3 at home, 33 points per game. Facing Indy, who he struggled against in November, but to me, I thought CJ came into the season a little sluggish, a little out of shape, and he's rounded really well into shape. And now he's lighting it up with Zion or BI out tonight. In that dud against Indy, BI had a 31% usage rate, and Zion also had too low of usage. But now, they can use CJ to really attack Indy, which is giving up the most points per game to shooting guards in their last 7 and third most on the season, throwing a lot of rookies out there at that position on the wing, Nembhard and Benny Matz, as we call him. So I think it's going to be a teaching opportunity for CJ at home, and he's going to continue to cook.
Yeah, you didn't even mention Buddy Hield's lack of defense as well, who's starting at shooting guard for them. And that man loves to watch others shoot threes just as much as he loves to watch himself shoot threes. So I think there's plenty of reason to love CJ at 21 points to score tonight. I mean, if you want to get him to score 25, you probably get closer to double your money there. I feel fine about CJ, getting 25 points tonight. I think that's way, way too low right now. So I'm going to go to another guy who's been tearing it up since he came back. LaMelo Ball has those Hornets playing pretty well. His points, rebounds, and assists are at 36.5. As I told you the other night, watch out for the Lakers game where they are probably going to lose to these Hornets. That wasn't even LaMelo's best game, although he did end with 23 and well over this 36.5 PRA. This game has a 238 total tonight versus the Blazers. I think you can expect a lot of great guard play in this one. No Gary Payton II tonight or Justice Winslow, and you've got Nurkic and Josh Hart both returning from injury, so we'll see what sort of shape they're in. Had some decent rest, but we'll see about that. And then his last 4, Melo, we're talking about, I guess I'm calling him Melo, by the way. I used to fight against that, but he is. I'm just going to go with Melo at this point. He's deserved it. In his last 4, 25.5 a game, 7.5 boards, and more than 9 assists. That's with his about 32% usage rate and almost 35 minutes there. So you're basically looking at his per 36s. And in 3 versus Portland so far in his career, 28 a game, 6 boards, and 7 assists on that 31% usage. So this is what you can expect from this Hornets team in Melo tonight. And like we were saying about, without GP2 and Justice Winslow, definitely their 2 best wing defenders there, or at least guard defenders. Portland giving up the most rebounds per game to point guards, and in their last 7, allowing point guards to get about 30 points a game, and well over this line of the PRA that LaMelo is playing. And like I said, if he's playing about 35 to 36 minutes tonight, I think 37 points, rebounds, and assists combined, especially if you expect him to get close to the 25 points, you got to feel pretty good about him getting another 11 rebounds and assists combined.
Yeah, those numbers in his last 4 in just 34 minutes per game, and in his career against Portland in just 31. So, yeah, he's going to be playing more as Charlotte continues to push the pace, and they've really been dominating the paint margin in their last few games. I mean, just lighting it up. That's why you have a 238 total. As he just plays with big men all the time, and it's just like the LaMelo show in terms of pick and roll, either him scoring or assisting on everything. So I like combining the points and assists and throwing the rebounds too, because Portland, that's always their deal, right? They have undersized guards who are not going to match him on the boards. Looking at this Jazz Spurs game and want to take an under, I kind of want to predict a non-competitive finish is more what I'm thinking here, that Utah's just going to blow out the Spurs, who are no longer really trying to win. I mean, they've fluctuated between competitive results. They did have a couple pop-up wins, and they've beaten the Rockets twice, but that's, a different story than the Utah Jazz, who are actually pretty good and are very well rested. Off since December 22nd. They're 4-1 with 2+ days of rest, and they also go over with a rest advantage at a 5-1 rate. So might not be that close down the stretch. Keldon Johnson's been productive lately, but 21.5 points is high. I would tack on 3 assists as well because his playmaking is not really up there. So under 24.5 points assists against a Jazz team that's actually allowing the 3rd fewest points to small forwards this season, and has held KJ to 16.5 points and just 1 assist per game in his last 3 meetings with Utah. So like the Jazz, -4.5, and like them to limit, I guess, the Spurs' top option right now. I mean, they don't have much to threaten you with.
No, he is their top option, and he's been playing better since I think it was actually when we took an over on him like 3 weeks ago because he had been playing so poorly, and that was the game that got him out of his rut. But this is an opportunity. I'm not necessarily going to tail this one just because of the way that Keldon Johnson's been playing in his last roughly 10 games or so. But I do like the idea of throwing the assists in there. You look at, he hasn't been playmaking nearly as much. I think he's only had 3 assists roughly twice in his last 10 games. So some opportunity there to feel good about him going under on the assists if you add those for sure. I'm going to finish things off talking about assists and rebounds combined for Ben Simmons over 11.5. You could take the points. They're only at 8 or so, so it'd be about a 19.5 points, rebounds, and assists. But over to get 12 rebounds and assists, basically, if he's getting minutes, and if he's getting minutes, it's because he's not fouling. Then he's going to be getting this prop essentially. So, over his last 3, he's averaging 8 assists and 7.7, basically 16 boards and assists combined. And that's in 31 minutes. And in 2 of those games over his last 3, he didn't even play 28 minutes. It was 27 and 24 minutes. He had a 41-minute outing in their overtime win recently as well, which is why he still has those minutes pretty high. But basically over his last 10 and his per 36 is 10 boards, 10 assists. And you've got to, especially tonight in a game where Cleveland, if they are going to be vulnerable anywhere, or at least if you're going to be able to attack those big men down low, you've got to be playing a little bit more of that mid-range game, getting a few more of those offensive boards that might be bouncing kind of high and out into the middle of the paint. And that's where Ben Simmons lives, and he has been living at the offensive on the offensive rim as well, getting a ton of offensive rebounds. You might be worried about him in this game, but Cleveland, with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, but against Jared Allen in his career, he's doing just fine, averaging about 19, 10, and 8 in those games from when Jared Allen was on Brooklyn and he was on Philly. Really wasn't worried about that at that time. Hasn't really played much against Evan Mobley, so we'll see that. But Cleveland is susceptible in that one position that you expect Ben Simmons to be running all over the place, which is that versatile power forward. And they are bottom 10 in allowing points and rebounds and assists to opposing power forwards. So if there's one spot on the floor that you feel good about getting some of these hustle points against this team, it is in that power forward spot for Sen Bimmons tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a key cog in Brooklyn's surge here because he's a ball mover, and he's doing just enough to threaten defenses by attacking the rim when it's his opportunity. That it's opened up a lot of drive and kick lanes. It's a big reason why we like Brooklyn, despite Cleveland's great numbers at home this season. Brooklyn getting a little bit of juice on the money line. I think Simmons will be a part of their effort no matter how this game shakes out.
Yeah, he's going to have to be for sure. So that is all the time we have for you in this one, though. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us, bringing you these videos each and every weekday this season. So until we see you next, happy betting.